You're going to be making a pixel self-portrait. I want you to use this sheet of paper because it already has a grid of sorts drawn for you. And if you think about each one of these little boxes as one pixel, you'll have an easier time creating it. This is an example of my pixel self-portrait. So I tried to make it look like me, and I even made a paintbrush in my hand. Your pixel person has to be symmetrical. So what that means is, if you were to draw a line down the middle of my person, I would have the same number of pixels on one side as I do the other. I would have the eyes the same size. There would be the same amount of space between them. My arms are the same width, my legs are the same width. It doesn't have to be symmetrical looking, so I changed it and raised my arms so that I could hold up my paintbrush. But even though I did that, my arms are the same width across. Here's another example. This person is the same on both sides in terms of the size she used, but she changed it a little bit to make it a little more interesting. So if you just draw a person and you draw it correctly and you don't do anything else to it, you're going to get probably a B. Like this one. It's drawn well. It's symmetrical. It's fine, but there's nothing interesting about it. In order for you to get an A, you're going to have to change it a little bit. You're going to have to add some details. You could add a background. You could add your cat or your dog. You could really go fancy and fill in the whole background. Or even more detail. Now the thing about all of these examples that I'm showing you is that everything is drawn on this grid. Everything matches up with the pixel lines. So what you probably noticed is that the pixel lines are square. So you're not going to be able to do things like circles because that doesn't follow the pixel line. When you're designing on the computer, you don't design in circles, you design in squares. So in order to make a square look a little more rounded, I'm going to allow you to use angles. Each of the lines that I draw line up with the dots on the paper. And I'm making sure that it's the same on both sides so that it is symmetrical. So now I've got a shape it's not a perfect circle, but it fits the grid better than this. It looks more realistic than if I had just drawn a square. So I want you to start with the head. Make it however big you want. Just make sure that everything you draw lines up with the grid. Let's see, I'll put a neck on, and then I'll start with some shoulders. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I think I'll go one more. And then I'll tilt the shoulders down. I can use lines that go diagonal. I just can't use any curved lines. See how what I'm drawing is exactly on the grid lines. Is that the same? Nope, I went one too far. Once I get the body in, then I can start adding some details, like eyes. So this eye, I've got 1, 2 spaces over here, 1, 2 space over here. I can do a nose. And then a mouth. He looks grumpy, doesn't he? I can do a shirt. You can do yours however you want, as long as it follows along with the grid lines. So you can see on this one, the kind of nose, kind of fingers they made. Everything is drawn as a straight line. It can be up and down, it can be horizontal, or it can be diagonal. Even the details are drawn on the grid lines. There's no curves in here. And everything is symmetrical. There's the same amount of boxes on this side of the face, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as there is over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You do not have to be exactly the same on both sides. And your hair does not have to be symmetrical. But it does have to be drawn to the grid. There's a couple other tricks that I'll allow you to do. In addition to being able to do straight up and down lines, vertical lines, you can do horizontal lines, you can do diagonal lines as long as they go through the corners of those boxes. I will also allow you, because sometimes you get really nice details and you need it, I'll allow you to do half boxes. So you got to be really careful that you draw them straight, but you can split a box in half if you need a tiny little space. So let's talk about some of the requirements. You must have a human figure. It needs to be you. It needs to be symmetrical. And it must follow the guidelines. No curves. It also needs to be colored to finish it. These are all the things you must have. If you want to make it amazing, then you're going to add a background. Add detail. All of your detail must still be following the grid. You can add accessories like dogs and cats and TVs and music notes. You can color beautifully. And lastly, show me something new. That's what artists are always trying to do. They're always trying to show their audience something they've never seen before. Make them think. Make them stop and say, wow, that's interesting. If you can do that by using these things, then you're going to have an amazing artwork and it's going to get an A. If you just give me these things, it's going to get a B. I want to clarify a couple of things. Anywhere on here, does it say that you have to have a nose? Nope. See, this guy doesn't have a nose. Does it say you have to have fingers? Nope. You can put the hands in the pockets and then you won't have to draw it because it doesn't say that you must have fingers. It doesn't say that you must have hair. So if you want to get creative and not have to draw those things, that's fine. As long as it looks like a human and it's a portrait of you, then you've met the requirements.